Today we are reviewing chapter 10. So here we have sequences and series and then our counting down at the end of all of this. So we are first starting off with the sequences. If you don't remember, this is the formula for finding an arithmetic sequence, okay? So we actually have a question for you. Find the fifth term in a sequence if the first term is 8 and the common difference is 12. So this is our D, this is our N, and this is our A1. So I'm going to try and fit it in this little space here. So I've got A to the fifth. So the fifth term is 8 plus 5 minus 1 times 2. So 8 plus 4 times 2, which is 8 plus 8, which is 16. Now, if we wanted to count that up, we could as well. We could say 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, plus 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. But remember, sometimes that's not going to be as quick to do as plugging it in. You may end up with a problem that gives you something way more complicated. So you need to know this formula right here. Do I need to say that again? Know this formula. Okay? And I have the page number for you. This is on page 450 if you need to look over that. So moving forward, we have 10.2 series. So which of the following is a summation for the series 9 sum I equals 1, 2i. So if you remember, we have to actually put the 2 out front because it ends up having to be multiplied after the fact. And it's going to be n times n plus 1, all of that divided by 2. So it's going to be 2 times our n is 9 times 9 plus 1 divided by 2, which is 9 times 10 divided by 2, which is 2 times, I'm running out of space, 90 divided by 2, which I can actually cross this off here, cross this off there because I got a 2 and a 2 that'll cancel out. And it gives me the summation being 90 as my final answer. So don't forget this formula right here. It is n times n minus 1 divided by 2, or n plus 1, sorry. n times n plus 1 divided by 2. If you end up with something in front of I, it means it's going to be multiplied at the very end, which in our case got canceled out. Okay, geometric sequence. So there really isn't too much you need to know about the geometric sequences other than that their common ratio is a constant that each term gets multiplied by. So each term is separated by the common ratio, which is just then multiplied in between each term, or divided if you're going backwards, but multiplied is what they want to know, is that it is the common ratio is in a geometric sequence. So geometric sequences are related by a common ratio. You also need to know that convergent moves towards a single number. It converges on a single number, whereas divergent does not. Divergent does not move towards any single number. But if we were talking about how I have a bunch of lines here and they're all converging on one point, they're moving towards that single point, okay? So convergent means to move towards a single point. You need to know the difference between those two for that. And then down here at the very bottom, I have some counting for us. So I have the formulas for both of these. So NPR, these are permutations. Hence the P, permutations. NCR is going to be combinations. You need to know how both of these are written so that it's NPR and NCR. I always remembered it because NPR was a radio station that Mr. Rhodes, NPR was something that Mr. Rhodes liked to listen to. All I know is that it had to do with the news and it had to do with politics, and I wasn't that interested. So I always remembered permutations because of Mr. Rhodes, and I don't ask because it doesn't really have anything to do with Algebra 2, but that's how I always remembered it. Whereas combinations, I always just remembered it was almost exactly like NPR, but it has C in the middle instead. The main difference between permutations and combinations is that combinations have this little outlier right here. They have an extra little factorial of R. You need to know how this is written That's the only thing you need to know for combinations, but they are going to make you find a permutation. So I have an example of how to solve a permutation here. So n is to the left of the p, so that's 6. So I've got 6 factorial divided by 6 minus r, so n minus r. 6 minus 3 factorial. So this can be written as 6 factorial divided by 3 factorial. So this is like saying 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 factorial, because it goes 3 times 2 times 1. If you were to not remember how to completely solve this and say you were to go, oh, well, it's 6 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, instead of fully solving it out, just then put on the bottom 3 times 2 times 1, and you can see, oh, 3, 2, 1. And then you're left with 6 times 5, which is 30, times 4, which is 120 as your final answer. And it kind of sets it up and solves it pretty cool there. So just remember that the P goes with permutations, the C goes with combinations, N is on the left, R is on the right. However you find best to come up with remembering that, go for it. And then you are going to have to know the setup for this down here with the permutations. Okay, tomorrow we are moving into chapter 11. I'm going to spend 2 days on chapter 11. Don't forget to know this. I'm going to spend 2 days on chapter 11 because it's just a lot of information and I don't want my videos to be 15-20 minutes again. So see you tomorrow.